Good evening, and welcome to our 127th annual meeting of Mass Audubon. I'm Beth Kressley-Goldstein, and I'm chair of the board of directors. We're so delighted to have all of you here with us tonight, those of you here at WGBH, those on Zoom, and I have a special shout out to our folks out there on Zoom who are at our first ever sanctuary watch party at Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary in East Hampton, wherever Ollie is. Thank you so much for being a part of our Mass Audubon community. Together we work to protect the nature of Massachusetts for people and wildlife. You can see from the video, it teased our theme for the night, which is the power of nature. But I'd like to start us off with something a little bit simpler, which is our love of nature. It's something I think that connects us all and brings us all here tonight. So I'm going to ask each of you to think in your mind about a special place, someplace dear to you, or a special experience in nature. And just take a minute to center it in your mind. Think about it. Take in the air, the sights, the sounds. For me, this place, my special place, is on the Cape. It's in Chatham, inside the barrier beaches in the protected waterways. And when I am there, I feel a sense of calm. I breathe deeply. I was just centering myself on that place just now to be calm for giving remarks. But I breathe deeply. My shoulders relax. Sometimes a spontaneous smile lights my face for absolutely no reason at all. My kids would say it's a stupid grin, but I don't choose to think of it that way. And when I'm there, I feel happiness and wonder just being, simply being, listening, smelling the salty brine smells, watching, observing. I might see a teeny tiny horseshoe crab, a baby, in the eelgrass at the edge of the salt marsh. I love to watch the great blue herons stalking their prey through that same seagrass. Recently, I had a tremendous experience. I'd never had it before. I'm not a big birder, I'm afraid to admit, in this audience. But I had this experience where my husband and I were there, and there were hundreds of cormorants gathering before their migration south. I'd never seen anything like this. It was complete chaos, so noisy of beating wings and noises, yet they knew exactly what they were about and where they were going next. And it was just mysterious and fascinating, and I loved it. I find that I love to watch and observe this place across the seasons and across the years. In Chatham, the wind and water and waves and storms beat on the coast north of us, and the sand swirls down, and it shapes and reshapes the barrier islands and the shoals, and then we go out and discover all those changes in the spring. It's a delight. I have a voracious appetite to learn about this place, this special place of mine, and what attracts me most are all the interconnections that you learn about, and you learn about one and then the other, and I'm not a scientist, but finding out about all these interconnections, for me it deepens the wonder that I feel and all the good things that I feel. It's this amazing mind meld of both heart and spiritual blended with the mind and curiosity, and it's just awesome. I take pleasure in the vastness of nature when I'm in it, but also all the tiny details. And yes, in my special place, and hopefully in yours, there is power in nature. I think these experiences, my special place, your special place, each of ours, or special experiences, is what brings us here tonight. And it's why we work to protect these places for today and for the future, for future generations. It's why we hope to share these places with others, to learn about them, and quite simply, to support nature, to support the natural world. Nature is powerful, and we'll see a lot of that in all the things that it can do, but it also needs our help, now more than ever. And I think what excites me are the goals of our action agenda. They're bold and ambitious, and they are goals that seek to rise to meet the challenges of the day. And tonight, you'll hear more about our progress in these areas. I can tell you that we're having so much impact already right now, But we're also building this tremendous momentum for future impact, and I'm really inspired by the work. I'd like to take a minute to talk about our sanctuary system, because that is, after all, at the core of much of our work. It is the place where people come to make their connections, sometimes for the first time with the natural world, those things that many of us take for granted. And it's also the place where we spark curiosity in young people and hopefully build the naturalists of the future, the nature lovers of the future. And it's hopefully there are places where we inspire action to support nature. I want to tell you that our sanctuary system is strong and expanding, and we're investing behind it. There are 109 sanctuaries across the state at this point. 22 of them are fully staffed. We expanded our trail network by 5% this year. We have 209 miles of trails across the Commonwealth. We have opened 2 new all-persons trails with a third one coming for a total of 16. And this fall, we opened 2 new nature preschool, bringing little ones into experiences with nature. What else? We invested over $1 million in the upkeep and maintenance of our sanctuary systems, and also in greening our sanctuary system and in greening our sanctuary facilities so that we can lead by example in the field. We also, within that $1 million, we made key investments in projects like a new pavilion at Long Pasture and expanding an all-persons trail at Pleasant Valley. In total, 580,000 people visited our sanctuaries this year. That's powerful. If you haven't been to a sanctuary recently, please go, find one. The coming Thanksgiving holiday is a wonderful time to get outside, and if you go, be sure to bring friends or family with you. Bring more people into our tent. Let me just turn to our program now. First and foremost, partnership is a key to what we do. Many of you ask about this, but in truth, if we just try to do our work on our own as just Mouse Audubon, we can only go so far. And we're most effective when we're collaborating and partnering with people across the state who are like-minded and have similar goals as we do. Tonight, we'll highlight a few of those partners. In the land preservation and conservation area, land trusts, we'll be talking about Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust. Our partners at the state are so valuable and work with us day in, day out. Tonight, we welcome Melissa Hoffer, the Commonwealth's first climate chief. We're excited to have you here tonight, Chief Hoffer. We will also focus a little bit on our youth climate leaders and our youth leaders. We have Ollie Perot here. Ollie is 16 and a wonder, and East Hampton folks, she is one of your own, so I hope you're cheering for her out there. And I think all of you will be inspired by Ollie, and it's exciting to see young people. She and I already have a date on the calendar to talk about something, so I'm pretty excited. As well, of course, we have our dedicated staff. They're amazing, and they're always driving us, organizing us, and keeping us moving forward. Many of them are here tonight. We have our dedicated volunteers, our donors, our members, and all of you and everyone across the state that connect together to help us create change and support nature in the way that we'll celebrate tonight. But last and certainly not least, we have a new partner. We have an organization that has come forward with a tremendous commitment to conservation, and that their work will serve as a catalyst for work in the future. So we'll be excited to share that with you as well. As far as program, we will have a business meeting first, some honors and awards after that. We will have another video kind of giving you more of a flavor about what we think about when we talk about the power of nature. And then David O'Neill, our president, will come up and share some of our progress and accomplishments and our vision looking ahead. And finally, we will have David and Chief Hoffer talk about the state's ambitious climate goals for 2030 and 2050. And we'll get to hear firsthand from Chief Hoffer about how she envisions living into those goals. And then we'll gather afterwards for a reception. So it will be a great time to talk and talk about Mass Audubon and make connections with one another. So with that, I'm going to turn over to the business meeting and get us started. I'd like to formally call the 127th annual meeting of Mass Audubon to order. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the 2022 annual meeting. For both those of you in person and those of you on Zoom, you should have gotten these minutes in a packet before the meeting. And I'm hoping someone will make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Excellent. I'm going to bring this to a vote. All those present tonight, you have a paddle, and you can raise that if you're in favor. And for those of you attending on Zoom, you should have a poll on your screen to vote. So all those in favor? Excellent. Are there any nays? All right, and I get the thumbs up from Hillary for our folks on Zoom. Thank you. The ayes have it. At this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Rob Ball, Mass Audubon's treasurer and chair of the board's Administration and Finance Committee, to provide the treasurer's report. Rob?
Thanks, Beth. And thank you all for being here this evening. I'm very pleased to report the treasurer's report for fiscal year 2023. Mass Audubon had a tremendously strong year in fiscal year 23, fueled by increasing support for our mission and thoughtful management. These results will enable us to maintain and build reserves that will fuel future growth and, importantly, ensure organizational sustainability. Let me share some of the highlights. First, this year's operating revenues were $42 million, a 27% increase versus the prior year, and 46% above pre-pandemic levels in fiscal year 2019. All four primary sources of revenue at Mass Audubon either set best ever records or exceeded budget. First of all, thanks to you, contributions from our 170,000 members and thousands of donors set a record high, totaling $33 million. Of that, $16 million supported our annual operating budget. Donors also contributed $17 million to protect more land, strengthen our sanctuaries, as Beth alluded to, and expand our staff in critical areas of the action agenda. We've also begun to get real traction obtaining large-scale federal grants to support all this work. Our core mission-based programs like camps, preschools, school programs remain popular across the state, and most have rebounded to pre-pandemic levels or even higher. In fact, more than 11,000 campers joined our programs this year, numbers we haven't seen since 2019. Investment income from our endowment exceeded budget and was at an all-time high due to thoughtful management and higher interest rates. We also saw strong realized bequests that contributed to the health of the endowments, which are critical for the long-term sustainability of the organization. Membership revenues exceeded budget and were just shy of the peak we reached last year. On the expense side, expenses came in lower than budgeted. As for many organizations, this was due in large measure to trouble filling vacant positions. A focus of the board has been continuing to invest in staff compensation and make sure we have the right human resource capabilities to ensure we maintain a strong position as an attractive and desirable place for a conservation career. Looking ahead, we continue to be ambitious in our plan to protect nature, to address issues of equity and access to nature, and to use our leadership position, vast membership, and smart programming to address climate change. Thank you all for the important role you play in supporting Mass Audubon. We couldn't do what we do without the tremendous support of everyone here. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second? Excellent. Then I'm bringing this to a vote. All those in favor? All those paddles. Any nays? All right, and we are good online, so it is a vote. Thank you so much. At this time, I would like to introduce and invite Annie Hollingsworth, the chair of our nominating committee, to provide us with a nominating committee report.
Thank you, Beth. On behalf of the nominating committee, which includes Beth Kresley-Goldstein, Andy Fallander, Tracy Bilotnick, and myself, I am pleased to present our report. We are happy to announce 2 new directors who were voted in for 2-year terms this summer. They are Candace Lunn-Plotkin and Susie Tapson. Our new board members are highly esteemed leaders in our community, and we are grateful for their service to Mass Audubon. Candace Lunn-Plotkin is a partner and leader in McKinsey & Company's growth, marketing, and sales practice. She holds a BA from Harvard University and a master's in international relations from the Fletcher School at Tufts University. Candace has deep experience and expertise in marketing, sales, e-commerce, and digital business building. She has worked with more than 600 sales forces in her more than 30 years in line management and consulting roles. She serves clients in business-to-business sectors, notably in biotech, high-tech, financial services, industrial, and other industries. In addition to her rich knowledge of the Mass Audubon community, Candace has a special connection to Felix Neck Wildlife Sanctuary on the Vineyard, where she and her family enjoy exploring, volunteering, and participating in summer camp. Susie Tapson. Susie Tapson is a devoted conservation leader who has demonstrated a deep commitment to addressing the threat of climate change and other environmental causes. As the coordinator of the downtown Boston chapter of Mothers Out Front, she is an active advocate for public policies that advance climate solutions, and she coaches other volunteers of the organization to effectively advocate on these issues. Her background is in management consulting, and she most recently has worked as part of BCG Reserve, a program that hires alumni of the Boston Consulting Group to lead projects on behalf of the firm. She is an experienced board member and leader, having served as the chair of the Park School Board of Trustees, chair of the Education Committee of the Planned Parenthood League of Massachusetts Board of Directors, and the co-chair of the community planning process for the Beacon Hill Civic Association. She is also a member of Lead Boston. Welcome, Candace and Susie. Next, I am pleased to share our current directors for renomination for a 3-year term. They are Robert Ball, Tracy Bilotnick, Scott Edwards, Andrew Fallander, Lorna Gibson, Christopher Clem, Beth Kresley-Goldstein, Nagesh Mahanthapa, Patricia Spence, Randolph Wentworth, and Delphine Zerkaya. In addition to these board nominees, we also have recommendations for members for a 1-year term on the Audit Committee. They are Brian Hicks, James McGinnis, David Phelan, Peter Rosenblum, and Robert Ball.
Thank you, Annie, and thanks to the members of the nominating committee. Is there a motion to instruct the secretary to cast 1 ballot for the slate of directors for renomination and the audit committee as presented by the nominating committee?
So moved.
Thank you. I'll pay you later, Len. Is there a second? Second, thank you. I'm bringing this to a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Excellent. It is a vote. Thank you all. Thank you, Rob and Annie. This concludes our business meeting for the 125th annual meeting of Mass Audubon. You're stuck with me for just a little while longer. Next, we want to move to honoring some individuals and organizations for their tremendous support of conservation initiatives in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. First, I would like to congratulate our 2023 Conservation Teachers of the Year. There are 5 of them. Each year, we honor and select teachers doing innovative work, teaching young people about the environment. I invite you to learn more about this year's incredible awardees during the reception, We have posters on display featuring each of these amazing educators and the work that they're doing and why they've been nominated and selected to receive this award. I read each of them and I kind of want to be in each of their classes or programs. So they're doing great work. Anna Seiner and Katie Roberts, I believe, are both here with us tonight. So look for them at the reception, and congratulations to you both. Thank you for what you do. Next, I'm pleased to be able to present one of Mass Audubon's highest annual honors, the Alan H. Morgan Memorial Award, to Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust. The Alan H. Morgan Award was created in 1990 to honor a person or organization that has distinguished achievement in protecting the environment of Massachusetts with the same dedication, passion, and daring that Alan Morgan had as former president of Mass Audubon. Mass Audubon has been a proud partner with Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust over many projects and many years. Mount Grace has conserved over 37,000 acres of land in just 36 years. That is extraordinary. A recent example of their dedication and daring, Mount Grace was demonstrated in Mount Grace's work with us on the Greater Gales Project. And you'll hear a little bit more about Greater Gales in a few minutes in the video. Besides Greater Gales, Mount Grace and Mass Audubon are currently working on another project that will result in the protection of nearly 1,000 acres in Barre, Massachusetts. I will ask members of Mount Grace to stand. David Spackman, president of Mount Grace's board. Lenny Johnson, is Lenny here with us? Yes. A board member and treasurer. Sarah Wells, conservation director. And I apologize if there's anyone else I'm missing, but please stand. Can we give these folks a round of applause? Excellent. Thank you all for the important work that you are doing. We look forward to many, many more acres in the future. Now you'll get to hear a little bit more about how Mass Audubon is thinking about the power of nature through this next video, and then I will welcome David O'Neill up to the stage.
What else in the world can cleanse our air, can absorb our carbon, can clean our water, that can ensure that we have healthy populations of plants and wildlife? What else in the world can also improve our physical and mental well-being? What else in the world brings us joy, brings us together as people? It's not a prescription, it's not technology, it's the power of nature. Mass Audubon has identified the 3 greatest conservation challenges of our time: the loss of biodiversity, the inequitable access to nature, and climate change. For all 3 of those concerns and those challenges, nature is a solution.
The power of nature at a global scale is about its ability to sustain life on the planet. It's about complex systems that have evolved over millions of years to produce the clean air, the water, and resources that we and all the beautiful creatures we share this planet with need to survive. At a smaller ecosystem scale, the power of nature is about its strength and ability to heal.
Nature is where we recalibrate. My father is a doctor and he always said nature is the most powerful medicine. For me personally, being around spaces like this is what makes me a better human.
Spending time in nature allows all of us to unplug. It gives us a sense of calm and a sense of peace. Having a space where people can come together to talk, to recreate, that's what urban parks and nature can be.
We've committed to urban programming that provides low-income communities, as well as communities of color, with new access to open spaces.
The Nature in the City program is about supporting people that live in disinvested neighborhoods to help them protect, restore, and activate urban green spaces. Tree canopy in particular is a great measure of whether or not a particular neighborhood or community can withstand high heat events. And so one of the things that Mass Audubon is working on is trying to improve tree canopy in urban areas in particular. It's in those cities where residents and individuals are experiencing the most heat. The Boston Tree Alliance is a coalition of community partners coming together to plant trees on private land in the city of Boston, particularly focused in those neighborhoods that are under canopied, meaning they don't have very many trees, and therefore are subjected to a lot of the heat events that so many of us have been feeling these days.
Over the past year, we've created an ecological restoration team that's restoring cranberry bogs, restoring our salt marshes, and restoring and protecting our forests. These are the commitments we've made in our action agenda, and we're seeing the fruits of our labor. We are seeing results based on our commitments.
Cranberry bogs represent a tremendous restoration opportunity. Most of them were historic wetlands, but they're now buried with the sand from farming, ditched, and dammed, so they're heavily degraded. We're at a once-in-a-lifetime moment of land use change in southeastern Massachusetts, where thousands of acres of cranberry bogs are retiring. Landowners are facing intense pressure for development. With climate change and sea level rise, we know that our salt marshes are in trouble. The protection and restoration of low-lying cranberry bogs offers a sensible place for marshes to migrate inland in the future. Where I am today at the Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary is a great example. This was a former commercial cranberry bog subject to over 100 years of human impacts. But with restoration and a gentle push, the site is on the path to recovery, home now to abundant wildlife, thriving plant communities, and a healthy landscape.
The more we're able to protect our biodiversity, to protect our trees, to protect our open spaces, the better that we're able to heal the planet. Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust is a land conservation organization founded 37 years ago by foresters, and we focus a lot on trying to do landscape scale conservation. What that means is that we're trying to have an impact on a whole region. That often means that we're bringing an entire community together. The Greater Gale Project is a perfect example of this, where we had 12 different parcels and 11 landowners all come together to say that they wanted to protect this region. Mass Audubon was a fabulous partner on this project. Our conservation teams met weekly and they problem solved together, they troubleshooted, we even approached the fundraising jointly. And so we really built a strong bond around the protection of this spectacular landscape. When we protect land, we help mitigate against climate change. We give wildlife a chance to find refuge from changing climate, from changing temperatures. We're letting our trees survive and take in carbon. We're making sure that our water is clean. We're protecting people's legacy. We're protecting our future.
With our partners, we're protecting more land, restoring more land in our forests, along our coasts, along our rivers, and in our urban communities than ever before. And tonight, we're going to announce a game-changing gift that will accelerate the pace of this work across the Commonwealth. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, for being members, and for supporting our important work to protect the nature of Massachusetts.
Time's up. I haven't even started. I'm just getting going. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's a full house. We love that. We're so appreciative of all that you're doing to helping us accomplish this incredible work. Thank you. Well, I teased this idea of a game-changing gift, an announcement that we wanted to make tonight. And that announcement is that, and I'm starting out my remarks here, and I'm thrilled to start out my remarks in this way, and that is that the MathWorks Foundation has committed $25 million to Mass Audubon. $25 million. $25 million over 7 years to protect and restore the most important natural assets in the Commonwealth. We can't thank you enough, MathWorks, for your contributions to our work. It is a game changer for this organization. So thank you again. So the relationship started just in 2022, and Craig, who's with MathWorks, is going to speak about that relationship and how it evolved over a rapid period of time. But let me just tell you what it means to us. It means that we actually have capital to be able to go out and pursue land conservation deals in ways that are very, very strategic. And it allows us to react very quickly to opportunities that emerge on the landscape. We don't know what landowners are going to do necessarily. I wish we did, right? It would be helpful to us, but we don't. So opportunities can come up very, very quickly. And when we have that capital available to take advantage of that opportunity, it opens up the door for greater conservation across the Commonwealth. Let me give you one example. I should point out, and I was told by my land protection team, I think David Sentimena, Jocelyn, you all are here, but just before I arrived, I should say, that we protected today, closed on a deal, 160 acres called our Miller's Headwater Project in Ashburnham with the support of MathWorks. Closed just 2 hours ago, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without MathWorks. So that's an incredible, just hot off the presses opportunity. But there's other things that are emerging, and we hoped that this would happen, but we weren't exactly sure how it would happen. And a project came up, and we're working again with our amazing partners at Mount Grace, and it's a 1,350 acre parcel of land. It's huge for us. And this parcel of land was slated or prepared for development. It was going to be developed. And because the town wanted a different outcome, and because we had capital and amazing partners who knew what was going on locally, we were able to act quickly. Now, we haven't protected this land, and my hope is that next year we come back and say, we secured that 1,350 acres for the protection and for the power of nature and all of the assets that it provides. But we would not even be at the table. That land would be lost if it weren't for the capital that we have from MathWorks, and we're so deeply appreciative of it. So that's the kind of thing we can do when we have capital, but it's not the only thing we plan to do. It is the beginning of what we're calling our Climate and Nature Catalyst Fund. Our hope is to raise $75 million in private funding to be able to leverage public sources of funding to be able to act quickly and accelerate the pace of land conservation and restoration across the Commonwealth. Those dollars will help us help Melissa and the state meet its 2030 goal of protecting 30% of the land by 2030. So we have 100,000 acres to go. We want to be a big partner in making that happen. And importantly for us at Mass Audubon, we don't care if that land is Mass Audubon property. We don't care if it turns out to be a state park or wildlife refuge, or maybe our partners at Mount Grace are going to hold the land. It's that it's going to be protected and managed well so that we're getting to our important conservation goals and addressing the threats of lack of biodiversity, climate change, and the nature equity gap. So we're thrilled to be able to use these resources to be able to attract other private capital and make even a bigger imprint on the landscape. So with that, I would like to honor this gift by announcing today that we are awarding MathWorks our Nature of Massachusetts Award. This is our highest award we give out on an annual basis, and it is for an individual, an organization, or a company that's gone well beyond to achieve the goals of protecting the nature of Massachusetts. But we didn't think that that this incredible gift would be sufficient given the contribution that has been made by MathWorks. We wanted to do something different. So you all know that MathWorks specializes in mathematical computing software, right? I'm sure you've heard on public radio, MathWorks, makers of MATLAB and Simulink technologies. You've heard that. I'm sure you've all heard that by now, right? The company is devoted to creating tools that solve complex problems. Their contribution to us is helping us solve complex conservation problems, challenges that we face today. So each spring, Mass Audubon is part of the rejuvenation that occurs at that moment in time, right? The leaves get green, the forest floor comes to life. A community of new baby animals arrive at our Drumlin farm. You've been there, I hope. Well, this spring, in honor of MathWorks' incredible gift, their belief in the power of nature, and in our collective ability to solve some of the most complex conservation challenges of our time, there will be a new lamb at Drumlin Farm named Matt Lamb. Matt Lamb. So come, please, to Drumlin Farm this spring. Okay. Visit and say hello to Matt Lamb, right? Say hi. But when you're there, just remind yourself of the incredible generosity of MathWorks in helping us protect the nature of Massachusetts. So I'd like to acknowledge Jack Little. I'd like to acknowledge Gene O'Keefe, Jack, the CEO of MathWorks, Gene O'Keefe, the Chief Financial Officer at MathWorks, for your amazing generosity. We are so deeply grateful for what you've done. And I'd like to, at the same time, invite Craig Lazat to the stage, who will say a few words on behalf of MathWorks and the MathWorks Foundation. Craig.
Thank you. On behalf of MathWorks, I want to say thank you for this wonderful award. Almost everyone that I know has some connection to Mass Audubon. Mine is Drumlin Farm in Lincoln. For several summers, my son spent weeks there playing predator and prey on the drumlin, learning about animals, and meeting some great kids and counselors. A few years ago, MathWorks decided to look for ways we could support efforts to combat climate change, primarily through land preservation. The guidelines were: keep it local so our staff could see, feel, and touch what we did. Find an organization that has a core competency around land protection. We wanted our gift to be significant and impactful. And lastly, we wanted our gift to help spur additional public and private donations. Almost immediately, we thought about Mass Audubon. Their website detailed numerous projects with critical targets that needed funding. We connected with Victoria and David and worked on an initial one-time $2 million gift that helped preserve 4 specific parcels. After the success of our first gift, we challenged Mass Audubon to come back with something bigger, and that was the catalyst for the Climate Resiliency Fund, which, as David said, sets out to preserve 10,000 acres of land, restore 2,500 acres of wetlands, restore 10 miles of river, and help the Commonwealth achieve its goal to permanently preserve 30% of the land in the state by 2030. MathWorks has committed $25 million over the next 7 years to support the Climate Resiliency Fund. We hope our gift attracts other donors, both public and private. Again, on behalf of MathWorks, we want to thank you for this award, and more importantly, thank you to the folks at Mass Audubon for the vital work that you do. Thank you.
Really, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, for being such an amazing partner in all of this. Craig has been there, Caitlin has been there. They've been wonderful to work with over the last year and a half to get us to this point, and we are grateful. And of course, to you, Jack and Jean, and the entire MathWorks team for this transformational gift. We are eternally grateful for it. Thank you. All right, well, that's a big deal. We're excited. So what an amazing year, and I'm gonna pivot to just some of the accomplishments that we've reached this year to help advance the goals in the action agenda. That action agenda is spurring a lot of activity in the organization, including 2 new programs that were highlighted in that fantastic video. And Alex Hackman, I think, is here tonight. I see him in the back there. That was a brilliant work in that video, Alex. Alex Hackman runs our ecological restoration program. It's a brand new program. It's been about a year now. And also Stacy Butel, who's our senior director of our Nature in the City program, brilliant leader working on all of our new urban work. Those are 2 new programs that we have up and running. We've got great talent, we've got great plans, we've generated the income necessary to spur it, and those programs were highlighted in the video. But it was an amazing year, and I want to just share a couple of personal experiences that I had while I was out. Yeah, that was fun. So Mark Tisa of Mass Wildlife had reached out and said, David, would you like to go tag a brown bear, a mama brown bear? And I said, yes, where do I sign up? And I learned in that experience, Dave Waddles was there. Dave is the bear biologist for Mass Wildlife. But they've been working on a study for almost 4 decades now to understand the population dynamics of brown bears, which are now almost, I think, 5,000 brown bears in the Commonwealth. An incredible success story. I'm sure for some of you, maybe an occasional nuisance, but an incredible conservation success story. But it was a lot of fun to get out there. My job was to keep the cub warm as they were taking care of the mama bear, which I enjoyed tremendously. And then here I am out on the Cape. I think I'm in Eastham, and I'm with 2 of our volunteer partners, Joanna Buffington and Bill Allen. Bill Allen, I think, is the terrapin man on the Cape, and they've been working really hard to bring back diamondback terrapins. And what I learned when I went out there's actually 17 baby terrapins in that little bin. That's a pretty good catch. We were releasing them and hoping that most of them survive. It's unlikely that most will survive, but it's important that we get the carrying capacity up. But what I learned was that the work that's being done in Eastham has actually stabilized the population of diamondback terrapins because of the volunteer work, the work of Mass Audubon, and the work of landowners. It's a pretty special experience and wonderful success story. And that's a very bad selfie. I got to do some work on that. But I was at Broadmeadow Brook and in Worcester, and I got to run into our camp counselors as they were training for a big season. You heard 11,000 campers this year, so we're back to pre-pandemic numbers in terms of the number of young people who are having experiences there. But these young people, these young conservation leaders were gearing up for a big season, and it was a big season. It was a wet summer, so they had their work cut out for them, but they were up for the task. So a lot of fun and a lot of really great experiences, but just to give you a quick spin around Mass Audubon, it's complex, there's lots of things going on. It might look like a lot of random pieces, but they're all puzzle pieces that help us form a mosaic of work that's helping us address those 3 great challenges in our action agenda. So let me start with land protection. This is Halls Hill. Again, Mount Grace, a Mount Grace partnership. This is 1,000 acres of land that we are going to protect this year with our partners at Mount Grace. This land is biologically diverse, pops in all the state planning and the biomap tools at the state level. It's really important for water, right? It's in the Quabbin Reservoir. I'm looking at you just in case I get it wrong, you'll tell me. It's in the Quabbin Reservoir, so it's helping protect drinking water. It saves it retains, I should say, a ton of carbon. In fact, about 50,000 tons of carbon. I actually asked Dr. Jonathan Thompson, how much carbon are we retaining by protecting these 1,000 acres? And he said 50 to 60,000 tons of carbon. I think I have that right. And so these are the types of projects that hit the sweet spot where we're protecting biodiversity, we're addressing our climate change challenges, and we're protecting water quality. And we'll open it up so people can experience it and enjoy nature. Our land protection work this year, with the help of MathWorks, we will save more land than we've ever saved in any year in the history of Mass Audubon. But we realize we can't solve all of our problems just by saving land. One, it's expensive and you've got to cover a lot of ground. So public policy is really, really important. And our policy and advocacy team is working really hard to figure out how do we reduce the risks on our natural environment. And Michelle Mannion, who's our VP for Policy and Advocacy, working with Harvard Forests, generated a report. It just came out. You may have seen this a couple weeks ago, called Growing Solar, Saving Nature. And the report spells out very clearly that we can both meet our clean energy objectives in the Commonwealth and protect our most vital forest lands. And it's going to take smart policy, and we're going to need your help to advocate for those good policies. But in order for us to accomplish our objectives, we need to protect land, we need to restore land, but we also need very thoughtful public policy that will help restrict any pressure on our natural spaces. So amazing report. I urge you to take a look at it online and then help us advocate for the policies that will get us to the right place relative to our clean energy goals. This is our work in ecological restoration. I was just talking about Alex Hackman's team. This is Cranberry Bog, and you all heard about Tidmarsh. What a great project. Gloriana and Evan are here tonight, the folks that we partner with who own this land, who had this vision for restoring it into a natural wetland system, new streams, new rivers. You know, as Alex often says, there was one species that was on this land, the cranberry, and now there are 550 some species on this property. So it's transformed into this, and it motivated us to create this new ecological restoration program. And this year we received a $4 million NOAA grant, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration grant, to help us do more coastal restoration work, including coastal cranberry bog restoration work, and importantly, shape a roadmap for new projects that we will attack with our partners over a longer period of time. So really exciting, and that team is off and running, and we're very proud of them, and that $4 million gets us going. Well, this is cute. Who doesn't love a piping plover? So 4 decades ago, piping plovers, about 160 pairs of piping plovers on the beaches and islands of Massachusetts, 160. At that time, they listed the species as an endangered species. About around the same time, Mass Audubon established its coastal waterbirds program. So 4 decades ago, 160 pairs of piping plovers on the beaches. Today, because of the success of that program, which I've learned is really a national, if not an international model, we've been able to protect those birds, and now there are 1,400 pairs of piping plovers on our beaches. And what we hope to do is get it delisted from the endangered species list. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And about a month ago, I was down in New York with our Coastal Waterbirds Program leaders to receive an award from National Audubon Society, the Cassie Conservation Award, for the great work that the Coastal Waterbirds Program has been doing over the last 4 decades. We sat there with folks from the Bahamas National Trust, folks that were working in North Carolina and New York, and each of them pointed to us as the model for how they're thinking about doing that work across the entire flyway of the piping plover. Very exciting, and work well recognized. Related to this, of course, is we think about our coastal waterbirds and how we protect our coastal waterbirds, and we think about our coastal resiliency program overall. One of the really important critical species in the mix is the horseshoe crab. Right? This horseshoe crab, it's a prehistoric creature, right? It's also charismatic in many ways. People love to pick up a horseshoe crab. It's also a linchpin in the ecosystem, the coastal ecosystem. And in Massachusetts today, you can harvest breeding female horseshoe crabs, right? These crabs lay eggs that those red knots on the screen right there rely on to make this journey from Tierra del Fuego up to the Arctic. And without those eggs, those birds go away. So we want to protect horseshoe crabs, and our policy and advocacy team has prioritized the protection of horseshoe crabs as one of 3 priorities this year. When you get those email alerts, or when we ask you to come to Beacon Hill, or when we want you to come to one of the meetings of the Marine Fisheries Commission, please come. Help us advocate for the protection of horseshoe crabs. We can't be last in all states along the Atlantic coast in terms of protections for horseshoe crabs. So let's do something about that together. All right. Our Nature in the City program that Stacy was talking about in the video is taking off. Pawtucket Farm in Lowell. I just learned yesterday we protected the first of 3 parcels to create this sanctuary. So the first of 3 parcels. So we own land in Lowell. And we hope to own all 20-some acres of this to create a new urban sanctuary in the city of Lowell. And we're working very hard to get there. And it's a big milestone that we met yesterday. The team was ecstatic. These things are very, very complicated deals to get done, and they cross over that important threshold. But this work, coupled with the work that we're doing in the city of Boston, partnering with the city of Boston to create the Tree Alliance, are 2 examples of our Nature in the City program in action. But another project that I wanted to talk about, and that I hope that next year we can highlight as a success story, and this is a project that is in Chelsea. So there's 17 acres in Chelsea. It's on the riverfront. It's a very complex deal. It's a brownfield partially, but it sits right on the Chelsea Creek. We'd like to be able to protect that with our partners in Chelsea. And it's going to be tough. We're not sure we're going to be able to get there, but we're working very, very hard. But I'd love next year for us to say we've protected it, and we're working together with our partners in Chelsea to convert that space into an incredible nature park for the community of Chelsea, which absolutely lacks any green space and access to the river. So we're working very hard on that, but another example of the work we're doing in our Nature in the City program. Importantly, we set out 2 years ago to see if we could actually direct $1 billion of new public funding to climate and nature priorities that the state and other partners had across the organization. $1 billion of new public funding that would go to nature and climate priorities set by the state as well as our conservation partners. And I'm really happy to tell you that we exceeded that goal this year. Over $1 billion of new public funding going to our nature and climate solutions. It's incredible, incredibly important, and frankly, it should have been done a long, long time ago. We're still in a deficit relative to the needs that exist for protecting nature in Massachusetts. But one piece of that relates back to the Chelsea project is that we worked really hard to get $75 million of that total dedicated for the protection of urban green spaces. So projects like Chelsea, we want to have resources to be able to pursue those projects. So very, very exciting, and a fantastic win for our policy and advocacy team, as well as all of our climate champions, and hopefully some of you are part of the Climate Champions program, and if you're not, we will sign you up at the door on your way out. Okay. And our camps, our diversity work, we're committed to. Our diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and accessibility program is something we committed to in our action agenda. It's a through line across all of the work that we're doing. It's a commitment we made. And this past year, we worked very hard as a board, as a staff, as a governance committee, as the members had opportunities to participate in the creation of our first diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and accessibility strategy that's being led by Nia Keith, who is here tonight. And we're going to work very hard to create a sense of vision that we have for creating a sense of belonging in our office for all of our employees, but also through our programs and at our sanctuaries. This is a commitment that the board has made and has committed resources to be able to execute on. And we hope next year we can give you a whole series of successes that have come out of that work. Part of our work in building early career programs is two programs that we kicked off this year. One is our Environmental Fellows Program, and the other is the Massachusetts Climate Corps. Both of them first-year programs, and these are our 5 environmental fellows. And one of the goals of the Environmental Fellowship Program is to have these fellows go through a 14-month fellowship where they're working for us, but they're also doing work that helps the organization grow and develop. And we want these folks to get careers in the conservation space. Well, all 5 have incredibly brilliant jobs in the conservation space after their 14-month fellowship, and we're fortunate that 3 of them are now working for us full-time. So really, really excited. We have some, the second cohort of environmental fellows are here tonight, right? We got a few up here. Come, stand up. All right. Okay. And we've talked about our camps, but one of the things that we didn't mention in our camp programs is the fact that we instituted a sliding scale program that allows families that may have been priced out of our camps in the past to be able to send their kids to our camp programs. So that sliding scale program was instituted across all of our camp programs this year through our sanctuaries, and Gail Yo is here, Chris Skopanich is here, who have helped lead this effort for us. And we're fortunate that 1,400 campers from those families were able to send their kids to our camps this year because of this new sliding scale program and a commitment of finances that we made as an organization to be more open to all in the programs that we run. We're really, really proud of this program, and we'll continue to develop it and evolve it over time. All right. So, we did that for Beth, who's one of the most amazing board chairs in the history of the world. We bow to her. We know she loves the great blue heron. Beth's leadership, her partnership, her wisdom, all of this growth of the organization, we have so much to thank for having a chair like you in this role at this moment. So thank you, Beth. Thank you very much. So the organization is tackling all of our goals in the action agenda. We're either meeting or exceeding all of the goals that we've laid out for ourselves. We're keeping ourselves accountable to meeting those objectives, to exceeding them when we can. And we've built the resources, we've built the team, we've built the strategy, and now the organization and the action agenda is taking flight. So thank you MathWorks, thank you all the supporters that have helped us this year, thank you board and governance, thank you members, thank you everyone for a wonderful year and a wonderful year to come. And thank you for coming tonight. So I am super excited now to introduce our amazing, one of our amazing youth climate leaders. There she is, Ollie Peralt from East Hampton. Ollie, I got a call from Rebecca Tepper, who's the secretary for EEA, last October, maybe November, and they asked for us to identify a youth climate leader that could be recognized at the Earthshot event with the Royals. Remember when the Royals were here last year? And I quickly asked Gail and Chris and the team, who should that be? And Ollie, like instantly. And it was, this is a person who's been leading the youth climate program, started even at 11 years old. She was honored out at, I think it was halftime at the Boston Celtics game. And this is Maura Healey, of course, our governor, then governor-elect Maura Healey. And there's a picture of Ollie engaging with the royals, the prince and princess and Governor Healy, and I'm sitting there going, unbelievable poise. I mean, just, I'm sure espousing the need to take action around climate change. And we're really, really proud that she's been part of Mass Audubon and helping us understand how to engage the youth in our climate efforts. So Ollie has recently connected with the Massachusetts Climate Office and Melissa Hoffer, and she's now a founding member of Chief Hoffer's Youth Climate Council. I'm going to turn it over to Ollie to introduce Chief Hoffer. Ollie.
Hi, everybody. Wow, there are a lot more of you from this angle. So as David and Beth mentioned, my name is Ollie Peralt. I use she, her pronouns. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a youth climate leadership representative with Mass Audubon. So I'm so grateful for the chance to be here today to share a few words about this program and to share about this mission critical work and to meet you all. So in my role within Mass Audubon, I have the opportunity to work on both a local and statewide level to advocate for youth voices to be heard and to educate young people on transformative change. And I have been a part of Mass Audubon's Youth Climate Leadership Program since I was about 11 years old. For those who don't know, the Youth Climate Leadership Program, or the YCLP, is a justice-oriented network of young people who partake in a series of year-long climate action projects across the state. The main goal of this program is to empower and inspire young people to be loud and to raise our voices in advocating for our right to a livable future. A major goal of this network is to ensure that young people play an active role in the vision and decision-making process within Mass Audubon. Young people today offer an incredibly unique and powerful perspective on climate solutions and environmental justice, so we are helping to ensure that Mass Audubon is working hand in hand with the next generation to make change and to lead the way. We often think of the YCLP as a kind of launch pad, a place for young people to grow as leaders, to learn in community, and to instill in the students of Mass Audubon a passion for action and a love for collaboration. Our leaders go on to spark transformative change beyond our network in so many creative and innovative ways, from starting their own environmental clubs within their schools, to writing interdisciplinary climate justice education bills, to collaborating with state representatives on climate policy at a district level, to even now partnering with the CDC Foundation at a federal level. And this year, we have the opportunity to make a particularly exciting connection within the Commonwealth. As many of you know, on day one of her administration, our governor, Maura Healey, signed an executive order establishing the position of climate chief and creating an office of climate innovation and resiliency. And we are the first state in the nation to create such a position at the cabinet level. And so back in May, we in the YCLP had the opportunity to sit down with Climate Chief Melissa Hoffer and to start brainstorming different ways that young people throughout our communities could connect with and participate in the opportunities that come with this new office in a way that actively recognizes the importance of the youth perspective within this movement. And since then, we have launched an advisory youth climate council composed of over 60 passionate, knowledgeable, and dedicated high school students who will be advising the office over the course of the next year and hopefully into the years beyond. And this council provides young people with hands-on experience and an opportunity to impact the climate policies that are going to affect our futures. This evolving partnership within the office will help shape a generation of leaders who are committed to fighting for a just and sustainable future for all, and who have an experiential knowledge of the democratic process and the levers of change within our Massachusetts Commonwealth. And this council could not have been made possible without the incredible support and mentorship of Climate Chief Melissa Hoffer, someone who truly knows and understands the power and importance of youth voices within this movement. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure having the opportunity to collaborate with the Climate Chief on this statewide initiative, and I can't wait to see the goals that we can accomplish together in the future. So without further ado, please welcome Chief Hoffer to the stage.
She's something. Ollie's pretty amazing, Chief Hoffer. Well, we are We're absolutely honored to have you here tonight. Thank you for joining us. We've been inspired by your leadership. The issues that you're grappling with are complex, multidimensional, economic-wide. I don't know how you're doing it, but you're doing an exceptional job. So let's talk a little bit about that. But first, let me ask you about Ollie. And you have said in public statements and creating this youth climate work that young people are so important to the climate movement. Tell me a little bit of why you feel that way and how you're engaging young people in your work.
Well, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to Ollie again. And I think there are a couple other members of Youth Climate Council here tonight. If you're here, if you could just raise your hands or stand up. Thank you. Yay.
Oh, yeah.
Great. I don't think I can say it really any better than Ollie did. And that is that these are our leaders of tomorrow. And so it's really important that they have as much opportunity as possible to really understand what it means to move an impactful agenda and to understand a little bit about how government works. I also feel that the flip is true. So when we're making decisions and when the governor is seeking advice from me and from my fellow cabinet secretaries, it's really important that young people are at the table, because our decisions today are going to affect their lives in the future. And so I feel very strongly about that. And it's important that we take that into account and we do it in a really serious way. So that's our effort with Youth Climate Council. The governor's office has a number of councils, and this is our very first Youth Climate Council with a specific focus on young people and climate change.
Chief Hoffer, just a week ago, you released a sweeping report that included 39 recommendations and actions that you define that are critical for the Commonwealth to meet its climate goals. It was an impressive list of recommendations. We were really excited to see the nature-based climate solutions embedded in it. Can you tell us a little bit about that report and how you intend to move it forward?
Sure. So that report was required to be produced by Climate Office pursuant to the executive order that established my office. So that's Executive Order 604. You can Google it. And it created the Climate Office. It set up a series of Secretariat climate officers, which are individuals. They weren't new hires, but they were people within each of the secretariats who are charged with ensuring that our climate mission is carried out in that particular secretariat. So the report is recommendations that I provided to the governor at the 6-month mark, and we just issued that report for public last week. And it goes over, first of all, the vision for what does a whole of government approach look like, and it offers some principles in that regard. And those are things like think systemically, de-siloing gracefully, making sure that we are considering the manner in which we can gain co-benefits as we're doing this, so that we're multi-solving. If we have a problem that is a climate problem, can we also fix that in a way that will offer a health benefit, for example? So it offers some series of recommendations or principles for a whole of government approach. And by whole of government approach, what we mean is everybody owning climate change in government. So you can think of the Climate Office as really an innovation in governments and policy, how we go about governance, by ensuring that we're injecting climate change into the DNA of all of the state agencies and secretariats. So those principles are in there. It goes through some trends and barriers, trends being the fact that we have a transformative level of federal funding to help us accomplish this work. There are a couple of other those barriers. You can probably think what those are. Financing barriers, workforce and labor shortages, for example, distribution grid congestion, the fact that we still have many entrenched interests opposed to clean energy transition blocking our way, et cetera. And then it offers this specific group of recommendations, and I think there are 4 kind of key takeaways that I would leave you with tonight. And the first is that And for many of you who are here who run businesses, this will come as no surprise to you. But we really need to get our arms around the level of investment that's required for us to achieve our net zero by 2050 goal. Right now, we don't have a good idea of that. What is the level of investment required and sort of where does it fall? State government, municipal government, private sector, and other actors. So we need to understand that because then we can match it with the funding and financing strategies that we're going to need. So, I was thinking back to your presentation tonight. We have this really important 30% by 2030 conservation goal. So that requires us to purchase land. So that means we have to have that in our capital budgets, and that means we have it in our capital budgets over a series of years so that we can be sure that we hit that target. So that's an example of how that gets done. Of course, we have other goals like electrification of the vehicle fleet, decarbonization of building sector, for example. And when I say decarbonization, what I mean is getting the fossil fuels out of the transportation system, the building sector, and the power sector. So we need to figure that out, and then we need to be very sophisticated about how we're going to fund and finance it over time. So that's a big overarching recommendation. The other one also has to do with how the state spends its money. And states, at a very simple level, we have a power to convene, we regulate people, and we make purchasing decisions, procurement decisions. And so how we spend our money is really, really important. And when I say spend our money, I am talking about things like procurement. So we'll be doing some things on the procurement side. We've already have an executive order that's banned the government itself from purchasing single-use plastic bottles. But we want to also be thinking more broadly about ensuring that the people who we're doing our contracting with are doing carbon disclosures, and they are telling us what their plans are for reducing their own greenhouse gas emissions footprint so that we can be driving change throughout the broader economy, so that we can be purchasing lower embodied carbon products, but also so that when we are granting, when we are giving money away, when we are subsidizing activities, we're doing that in a way that's consistent with our Clean Energy and Climate Plan. And just super quick, if folks don't know, we have a Global Warming Solutions Act in the state that requires, it's a statute, that requires the preparation of the Clean Energy and Climate Plan, which sets sector-based reduced greenhouse gas emission limits over time. So they're mandatory. It's not just something nice. It's something that we have to do. The third thing that is really important about this is you'll see a big pivot to resilience. Because we have had a 40-year delay in taking action on climate due to a very successful campaign by fossil fuel companies to convince us that climate change isn't happening, we lost a lot of time. So now we are in an unenviable position of having to reduce emissions. And the IPCC is saying that we need to halve global emissions in the next 6 years to have a shot at staying within 1.5. And of course, we've exceeded 1.5 in September of this year. So that's a big lift, and it would be a big lift anyway, but now we also have to do that while we're investing in resilience that we need. So that's probably the next big thing. And then the last thing is, this is a huge, huge opportunity for the climate well. I'm just coming here from the opening of GE's Vernova headquarters in Cambridge, which is just incredible to get a chance to talk to some of those engineers about what they're doing with next generation wind turbine technology, what they're doing with software to do the grid modernization that we need so we can plug all this great renewable power into it, make our grid be smart, talk two ways. We can do much more with energy efficiency and virtual power plants. So we're really going to be like the brain center of the climate tech revolution here in Massachusetts. And that means we have to work very hard at ensuring that we develop that and we have all the assets here that we need to grow that strong climate tech economy and the workforce that's going to be needed to build it. So that means getting tighter about how we're managing those processes internally and ensuring that we have clear metrics in place, clear accountability and leadership roles across the board. We're very excited to have Emily Reichert join us from Greentown Labs at Mass CEC. And those are the primary takeaways, I think, for the report.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. Amazing economy-wide recommendations. And this is not on script, but I'm curious, the IRA funding and how important that is at this moment in time to spur some of these economic opportunities that exist in the green economy.
Yeah, so that is really it. It is transformational because the thing with the IRA is, you know, it's about leveraging money from the private sector as well. So it sets up a lot of incentives, and there are many different programs. So, you know, there are tax credits, there are outright grants, there's formula funding. So there's a concept of braiding that has emerged. For those of you who are working in this space, you have probably heard this. So this is a way of how do we ensure that we're using all of the tax credits and we're wrapping that around the outright grants that we can have, that we're working with our corporate partners who are also going after some of this money, and how do we maximize the availability of these funds. So that is an incredible moment. And the Biden administration, you know, has really put an enormous amount of effort into ensuring that this money will spark a clean energy and climate change revolution in the country, and I think it's well on its way to doing that.
Yeah, I think there's no question, and you're seeing it, blue states, red states, all across the country, and it's pretty amazing just to see what's happening in places like Cambridge and across a lot of towns and cities in Massachusetts. But your report had some pretty sombering components to it, of course, and you mentioned, for instance, in western Massachusetts, 1,000 acres of farmland were affected, and farms across the region reported near total crop losses due to torrential rains. Merrimack Valley storm dropped over 6 inches of rain within 6 hours, causing $30 million in damages in North Andover in August. In September, Leominster experienced life-threatening flooding when about 10 inches of torrential rain fell in the span, 10 inches in 6 hours. These are not normal events. This is not a 100-year storm or a 500-year storm. These things are happening much more frequently, and they're costing us a lot of money and human lives in certain cases. Would you share your thoughts on how you see nature as one tool in helping us to mitigate against the impacts of these storm events and building resiliency into our infrastructure?
Yeah, David, thank you so much for that question. I just want to share with you on a personal note, the evening that the Leominster flooding was happening, I live in Barrie, so I'm not too far from Leominster, and I was working on the climate recommendations. I was sort of going through like a final draft, and I had my phone out, and we started to get one of those alerts. And this one was unusual because this one actually said, don't leave your house. That's how intense that rain was. So yes, these are unusual in our experience, and they are entirely consistent with the projections for our region. So this is why I just want to quickly take another minute to emphasize this. You know, because of the warming that's already occurred, and this, you know, you can consider the notion of atmospheric resonance time. So the carbon dioxide that we've already emitted is going to be up there on the order of centuries. So the warming that we're seeing now is locked in for a long time. And this should give us all a taste, because we are in El Nino right now, and coming into it in the coming year. This gives us a real taste of what it looks like to go over 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And just to unpack that a little bit, pre-industrial levels are generally, you know, before the Industrial Revolution, before we started burning a lot of fossil fuels, and it was around 280 parts per million of carbon dioxide, and right now we're around 420. So you can see that with this massive combustion of fossil fuels, we have really tipped Earth's energy balance, and we're starting to see these storms. I think as I sit here now, there's an unprecedented storm battering Brittany and the UK, and if folks have been looking at the images coming out of Acapulco, you know, these are really remarkable, and at the same time, they're exactly what we expect if we keep pumping these emissions into the air. So it's extremely important for us to at the same time reduce emissions, and turning to your question about resilience. So let's think about Leominster. If you looked at some of the pictures of that flooding, and you're like me and you spent a long time litigating environmental cases, you might have focused on, you know, some of the soil and what that soil appeared like, and where you saw the water rising. And we've begun to take a look at that. And like many places, if you go back and you look at the original topography of Leominster, those were hydric soils that got paved over. So you had, feeder streams and wetlands that just in the normal course of development often get built over. So that flood, we call it flood storage capacity, or the ability of land to hold these volumes of water during a storm event like that, have been lost. So, if you look at that and you think like, okay, we want to make sure that we are, when these events happen and we're going back and we're reconstructing, we want to do it in a way that the next 10-inch storm doesn't cause the same amount of damage, both because it was terrible for people. I think a few people got their homes condemned. I mean, if you saw the pictures, it washed in some places. The soil was just right out from under the foundation. Because that's a cost to the municipality and to the states, but also it's that human suffering. So to go back in and think about, okay, are there ways that we can reduce the size of parking lots? Can we restore some of these wetland areas and the like? Yeah. And that's where these nature-based solutions can really help us. So that's maybe a contemporary example.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I was the storm in Mexico. What did they say? Within 24 hours, it went from a 30 miles an hour windstorm to 150 miles an hour windstorm, Category 5. It just doesn't happen. It is, according to models, likely to happen. Yeah. Well, we are so pleased that the work to protect more land and to better manage land to sequester more carbon was highlighted in your plan. And you talk about the role of nature in sequestering more carbon to help us meet our objectives. What can advocates like Mass Audubon do to help you and the Commonwealth not only achieve the nature-based climate solutions that you've outlined, but the recommendations that you've included? Because you have an audience here who cares deeply and would love to be helpful in meeting the goals that you've set out.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you, and this is phenomenal. Just sitting here tonight, it's absolutely amazing what you're doing. The fact that you have created this $75 million fund and you're intending to use it for public-private partnership to acquire these lands, we need to be acquiring 685,000 acres between now and 2050 to meet our natural working lands target under the Clean Energy and Climate Plan. So we'll be talking. And and I think those kinds of partnerships, public-private partnerships across the board, are going to be really important. And this is a space where we can do a lot. I also really wanted to mention again our appreciation, our deep appreciation to you, and I don't know if Michelle's here tonight, for the Growing Solar Report, which is a phenomenal effort and goes back in a candid and clear-eyed way and looks at the error of some of the state's climate policy in the past that resulted, unfortunately, in a large percentage of solar, utility-scale solar projects being ground mount in what was previously forested land. So that's not good. If you live out by me, and I've said this before, there's kind of like a Shays rebellion against solar right now, and that's not what we want. It's entirely understandable given the experience of people on the ground. So I'm not dismissing that at all. In fact, and I think we, the Commonwealth, have some hard lessons to learn based on that. And at the same time, what we want is for people to be supporting our solar goals. So we have a potential solar study that DOER just issued, and we are. I had these numbers in my mind at the end of last week, and then took a small retreat. So I don't know if I can recall all of them, but I think we need like 10 times more solar than we have right now, to get out to 2050. So that's thinking about where is that going to go? Because there's, you got to think about, where is the hosting capacity? Where do we have the ability to plug it into the grid? And where is a suitable place that's not going to be in land that we want to be conserving? And it looks like, coming out of that study, that we could do a whole lot of it in infill lands, on rooftops, in parking lot canopies. So that's really where we're focused right now. And our hope is, coming out of our grid modernization plans that are going to give us a better sense of where renewables generally can go, that we have a map, if you will, that helps us understand here are the ideal places for us to put the solar, bearing in mind our needs for further conservation to also meet our natural and working lands goal. Because if I had this graph with you, I would show you we don't get to net zero just with our emissions reductions strategies. We don't get there. And then and what I mean by that is things like electrifying power sector and transportation and buildings. The way we get there is through preserving our coastal wetlands, our inland wetlands, and our land that can suck out the remaining carbon dioxide and get us down to net zero. So it's crucial. And of course, it's crucial for a whole bunch of other reasons, but it's very important for our climate plan.
Music to our ears. Music to our ears. And this relates to the next question, and that is that when Michelle and Michelle is in the audience, when Michelle and I first met with you, you were brand new in the role. And
we saw a red-tailed hawk.
And we saw a
from my
red-tailed
office.
hawk from the, it was just like Audubon. We were laying out our, sort of climate policy recommendations that we were going to share with all of our membership, and we wanted you to get a sneak peek of that and see what you thought, and where there was alignment and maybe where we could make some adjustments. And you said these are wonderful, and we said, well, is there anything missing? And you said, where's setting the biodiversity targets? And we said, well, we thought we were meeting with the chief of climate, right? We didn't think about biodiversity, but we were so thrilled to hear that. And the governor recently signed an executive order to set biodiversity targets just a month ago. And I think Tom O'Shea, our friend, the commissioner of, Tom's up there. Hey, Tom. Tom's the commissioner of the Department of Fish and Game, and is charged with developing these biodiversity targets. But we're curious, actually leaving that meeting, what prompted you to recommend that the state set biodiversity targets, and how do you see them intersecting with the work to address our climate crisis?
Well, first of all, shout out, one could not ask for a better colleague than Commissioner O'Shea, so thank you so much, and for all of your incredible work on that executive order, which is a nation-leading executive order. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I'm particularly concerned about it, I want to preface this by saying biodiversity, when we say that word, what are we really talking about? We're talking about species of plants and animals and insects, and they are important in and of themselves. Whole in and of themselves, they have value. There's this concept that we talked about when we signed the executive orders when the governor came out to Fish and Wildlife of biologic egalitarianism. And I think we are moving into a time where we are recognizing, the wholeness and the contribution of these species in and of themselves. And they have value for us. So we know that the health of human beings and human societies and cultures is entirely dependent upon the existence of biodiversity. And as it turns out, from a climate standpoint, biodiverse ecosystems are much more resilient to the impacts of climate change. So that's where it becomes a climate issue as well. We want to ensure that we have that biodiversity going into the future so that our ecosystems are more resilient to the impacts of climate change. And why do we care about that? We care because we care about those ecosystems as they stand independently and whole unto themselves, but we also care about it because it's incredibly important for our own survival. You can't separate the two. Our human well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the natural world, and the natural world is composed of these biodiverse ecosystems.
Wow. Thank you. Well, it's time for us to conclude, but would you like to share anything else with the Mass Audubon audience, those here?
I'm just so grateful for everything that you're doing. It was really a great pleasure to just sit here and hear about everything that you're doing and the innovation you're bringing to it, and to see you're going into places like Chelsea, and to see the fellows up there, and to have the opportunity to be working with Ollie and the cohort of young people who are doing all of this great work. So I'm just incredibly grateful. So thank you so much, and it's an honor for me to be here tonight.
It's an honor for us to have you here with us. Thank you so much. Beth is going to conclude, and stay there. I think we're supposed to stay here for a second.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Chief Hoffer. Absolutely fantastic. I'm glad to have you in the role that you're in. So, this concludes our program for our annual meeting. Thank you for being here. I hope it was inspiring and informational for you. And we so value your commitment to the nature of Massachusetts. For those of you at home, thank you for joining us virtually tonight. We welcome all of you here at GBH for refreshments in the atrium. Seek out other members, get to know folks that are here. And David and I will be out there, and we'll meet you out there shortly. So, thank you.